Welcome everybody to this webinar about warehouse automation in retail. Today we have Paul de Bie with us, a true retail industry veteran. He spent his professional life at various retailers, amongst others in the role of logistics director. And in that role he also initiated and managed warehouse mechanization and automation projects, also as an early adopter. And today he will share his lessons learned, the benefits and the pitfalls of automation. My name is Gerwin Bleuming, business consultant for Warehouse Automation Solutions. And the agenda of today, we will kick off with Paul sharing his lessons learned. And in the second part, I will present the concept of decoupling and the automation technology enabling this. And the system has been implemented at various sites across Europe, and we will zoom in on the case of ORTEC, and we will end this webinar with more optimization opportunities, more applications where the same technology and system can be of great value and a unique solution. So Paul, let me start with you and ask you, why should I automate my distribution center?
There are multiple reasons for that. The first is that you should be prepared for the future. Create a vision for the future of your supply chain or distribution network. You cannot be reactive, and you have to make sure you are ahead of the changes to come. Infrastructural changes, land acquisition, design, construction permits, engineering and tendering are multi-year projects. The shortage of skilled people is killing. Thinking of that kept me awake at night. And it was that reason we started with mechanization at Schuitema. Now we are just leaving a long crisis behind us, and attracting staff is still easy. But this can be different very soon. It will become more and more difficult to attract enough and skilled workers. The DC workforce is aging and labor costs will continue to rise. Retail logistics is top sport. A very high delivery performance and short lead times are the norm, day after day. Slowing down for a while is no option. Automation supports in streamlining the process, and it enables a continuous high performance. Contrary to 20 years ago, today you can make money with mechanization. Automated systems are often very compact. Mechanization within an existing building could be an excellent solution in case of growing volume. Moving to a temporary location is expensive and requires a lot of effort from the organization. The alternative is expansion, and that takes a lot of time and has a big impact on operations and is expensive. Speed and reliability have increased a lot over the years. Compared to my first project at Schuitema, the technology has evolved to proven technology. During that project and other projects at different retailers, I've learned some valuable lessons which are crucial for a successful project. Control software is more important than steel. Important questions to consider are: to what extent is the system capable of coping with changing order characteristics, with peaks, with promotion volumes or disruptions? Choose a supplier who develops excellent control software instead of the supplier with the best hardware. Work with one main contractor and make them responsible for the success of the entire project. This responsibility fits best with the role and position of the control and management software supplier. It starts with accurately identifying the flow which is going to be automated. How large is the fraction of promotions now and in the future? What are the different growth scenarios? What do my order profiles look like? Consider whether it is appropriate to work with averages and test the robustness of the results for different scenarios. The success of automation system is a joint responsibility of the supplier and the customer. You are going to use the system day after day. Therefore, a good supplier sets strict requirements for the level of and training of the users and system owner. The investment in terms of time is often substantial. What I have seen is that involving the future users already during construction, testing and commissioning is a good predictor of the performance after go live. These are some hard lessons I've learned in various projects. In the past 20 years, I've seen that technology became mature. Nowadays, retailers should take advantage of the possibilities of mechanization. ORTEC has developed some innovative mechanization solutions, which Gerwin will present now.
Thank you, Paul, for sharing these lessons, and well, they sound familiar to us. I want to talk about the link between warehouse and transport. And this is a process which is subject to an everlasting discussion, namely, what is leading? Is it the transport planning or is it order picking? And actually the answer is both. We have an automation solution which enables you to let them both be leading. So there's no longer need for the discussion if transport planning or the warehouse processes should be leading. But first, let's have a look at the problem itself. We see two graphs here. They will look familiar to most people in retail logistics. On the upper chart, we see a optimal production rate of a distribution center. You want to smoothen the workload to make efficient use of your people, of your space, and of your equipment. And you probably also want to do everything in 1 or 2 shifts. But, well, that is difficult because you also have to deal with the transport plan and the loading schedule, which you see in the lower chart. And it is clear that there's a imbalance between those two processes, but they are connected to each other. And that's where the problem arises, and that also is the reason why there's a need for buffering between these two processes. And the most common traditional solution is to use a large floor for that, to put all the pallets and roll containers on. But that is still quite an inefficient process. It takes a lot of people, it takes a lot of movements, and also takes a lot of space, and it still doesn't really disconnect the warehousing and distribution center operations from the loading. For example, you still need to know for which trip a certain pallet is before you can put it on the dock. And to really disconnect these two processes and to solve the problems you see on this, the questions you see on this sheet, we have an automation solution for that, which is called the OptiLogic sequencing buffer. And this is an animated video of how it works. Basically, it's a three-dimensional Rubik's Cube for pallets and roll containers. And in this animation, you see it connected to a large storage facility, but it can also be connected to picking processes, picking areas, to ASRS systems. Can be connected to any process. The key is that you can put pallets in a random sequence, random in time, what's most optimal and most efficient for that process, for picking, for production, for pallet retrieval, and the buffer will sort them out. So how does it work? There's 3 basic elements. There's elevators for the vertical movement. There's transfer cars, the yellow ones, on each level on both sides. And there's the long buffer channels, which are long chain conveyors. So for every direction, there's different equipment. And what we see happening here is all pallets have been put in the buffer in a random sequence, random in time. We have grouped them together of one load, and at the moment they are being sorted in, for example, reverse drop sequence, so that they are prepared for loading. As you can see, that takes a little while, approximately 20 seconds per pallet. But at the same time, on other levels, there's inbound going on. Maybe a truck is emptied for cross-docking, and at another level, maybe a truck is loaded. So it's a highly dynamic system, which is capable of handling multiple flows in parallel. So it's really for the dynamic areas where you normally move a lot of pallets with forklifts. Well, apparently the load has been sequenced now, and the truck has arrived, and now we deliver the pallets to the correct dock in the correct sequence, so that you have a very fast and fault-free loading process. Typically, loading a trailer takes around 10 minutes, so you can imagine what that means for the productivity of your loaders and for the turnaround time of your trucks. So in short, this is a very compact system, saving you a lot of space. It has a high capacity. It's very flexible in design. It has 3 basic elements which you can configure in the way what is required, and take into account the constraints maybe of your existing building. So in short, what does this bring to your DC operation? Of course, obviously, large reduction in space by using the height. That could also avoid the need for expansions or new facilities. Also, obviously, a large reduction in the labor which is needed, because loading is speed up, but also bringing the pallets to the consolidation area becomes very easy, because you can make the entry points close to where the order pickers finish their work. And there's efficiency gains in other warehouse areas, which can also have, that's what we have seen in multiple projects, surprisingly large savings in labor over there, because you can independently organize them what's most optimal for that area. And removing the dependencies also create opportunity to organize picking in another way. For example, why would you wait till starting with order picking until the loads or the trips are known? You can start when the order is known, put them in a buffer, and once the trips have been planned, the buffer will organize the loads and make sure that the right pallets are delivered at the right time at the right dock to be loaded in the trailer. And that is part of an integration of your loading process within the planning process, and with the other logistics software you use to also respond to changes if trucks are delayed, if trips are changing because of disturbances on the road. The buffer automatically can adapt to that, creating a really smooth and fast loading process. And the buffer can add value in multiple steps in the supply chain, especially in all kind of handover areas. And I want to present a case where it is applied as a consolidation and sequencing buffer. It is at ODTH. ODTH is a 3PL for, amongst others, Pringles, Procter & Gamble, Kellogg's. And this is one of their sites. And they basically had 2 problems. One on the outside, because trucks had to dock, load a few pallets, and then drive around the building to another dock and load the rest of the pallets. So loading was inefficient, and the turnaround time was not very good, actually very long. And they had inefficiencies inside their distribution center, because the driving distances for the forklifts were very long, and retrieval and also put away of pallets was very inefficient. So they decided to introduce a shipping buffer, the Optilogics buffer, at the heart of their set of warehouses actually. And by that they disconnected the retrieval and picking from the trips and loading. So first, driving distances were reduced, You can imagine that loading has become way more efficient, and they also could start retrieving the pallets and organizing the works in a different way, whereas they previously were product oriented, or sorry, load oriented. So one forklift driver would retrieve all the pallets for a certain load and bring them to the designated dock. They now work in product mode, so they look further ahead, for example the next 24 hours. They look for all their orders and they see that they need 30 pallets of Pringles for maybe 20 different trips. And then they start retrieving all those 30 pallets at once, put them in the buffer, and the buffer will group them and sequence them for that specific load. So you can imagine that really increased the productivity and efficiency inside the warehouse. And other benefits were at the loading side of the buffer. First of all, it's a very compact loading area. There's almost 2,000 pallets on less than 1,000 square meters, and all their trucks, approximately 100 to 150 per day, are loaded on 6 docks, and most of the times by only one forklift. One forklift can load 6 to 8 trucks per hour on his own. So it's a really fast and efficient loading process, and also fault-free, because the loader gets the right pallet delivered in front of the right dock, so it's very hard to make any loading mistakes. So what I achieved with the buffer was a different way of working. The trips uncoupled from all the order picking and retrieval activities, so they could also introduce a later cut-off time. They are less dependent on when the trucks arrive. They can respond to changes in trips and changes in orders, and of course a large reduction in labor both on the loading side and also on the retrieval side, while using lots less space. So this webinar is focused around the consolidation, sequencing and loading processes, but this same technology system with its inherent dynamic capabilities can also of course be used to optimize other processes. First of all, it can be used for roll containers. It can also be used to replenish order picking areas where just in time is also very important, and sequence. It can also be used to fully automate order picking, and because the system is unidirectional, you can also use it as an inbound buffer, and that makes it also the perfect automation solution for cross-docking. And the way you can load a truck from the buffer, and that way you can also unload a truck, consolidate those cross-docking pallets with other pallets, and create the perfectly sequenced outgoing load without touching it. So in short, this is what we wanted to present about this concept of uncoupling warehousing from transportation by using an automated sequencing buffer. And we and our customers have seen some impressive savings by applying this concept. And I would like to challenge you to think about your distribution center, how that is organized, and to think about what it could mean if you no longer have to take trips and consolidation and load preparation into account when you organize retrieval and picking. There's a lot of obvious savings in space and labor and total order cycle time, but there's also hidden savings by applying this concept. So this can really add value to your business, but of course it depends on your particular situation. And for this we have developed a quick value scan, so you can quickly discover what's in it for you. And with this you can get an idea of the feasibility and the return on investment for your operations up front, to see and to decide whether it makes sense to investigate this further. Sharing your experience and lessons learned. And thank you for attending this webinar. And on your screen you find our contact details, so feel free to ask and contact us.